Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you for those who are watching us on Zoom. I am Regina Hairston. I am the president and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, where we have been promoting economic development for Black businesses for the last 28 years. Thank you to our board for joining us this morning, the supportive board who allows us to bring programming as we are this morning. Thank you to our sponsors and our partners, 6ABC, WRD, and TD Bank for being here today and for making this program possible. Today, we will discuss initiatives and ways in order to help Black businesses recover from the pandemic and also to help them grow and thrive as we look towards the future. This month is National Black Business Month, and today we will be viewing a roundtable discussion where we talk to mayors across the country on what they're doing in their cities to help businesses thrive. And so this morning I bring to you our board chairman, Stephen Scott Bradley, where he will bring greetings from the board.
Good morning, everyone. As Regina mentioned, my name is Stephen Scott Bradley. I don't know where she got the A from, but I still love her. So welcome, and we appreciate you attending, and those people on Zoom and all across the world, we appreciate you participating this morning. We're very excited about this program, and we're very excited about Regina's leadership, who brought this ideal to us a while ago, and now it's coming to fruition, and we're very excited to move forward. The African American Chamber is a leading advocate and voice for the African American business community. We continue to make equity and access our top priorities, and we need support from organizations in the room and across our Zoom audience. Our new Building Back Black programming is aimed to stimulate businesses for African American business throughout our advocacy campaign, coupled with our strategic planning and our direct investments into Black businesses. That's really important as we move forward. This program is another step towards the African American Chamber and our members being part of this solution. And again, on behalf of the board members and our supportive, we'd like to thank you for your participation and your continued support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen, for those words. Next, we will have special remarks from our partner. First up is WRD. They are our media partner, and they have been an amazing partner to allow us to spread the message about Black businesses and to bring highlight to the businesses that we serve. Now we will have Josh Duncan.
Good morning. On behalf of WURD, I just want to say that we are so excited to be partners in helping this and making this program happen. I represent the Livelihood Initiative, which is an initiative that WURD has to connect the radio station to helping Black Philadelphians get jobs, get access to entrepreneurship opportunities, professional development resources, and financial literacy tools. So thank you so much to the African American Chamber of Commerce for having us today. We are looking forward to the program and looking forward to a continued partnership.
Thank you, Josh. And what she did not mention is we are launching a new partnership with WRD, and we will be bringing that information to you soon. Next, we will have our sponsors today, TD Bank. If I can ask Damian, the Regional Vice President for Greater Philadelphia, to come forward and bring remarks.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Damian, the Regional Vice President for Greater Philadelphia. Want to say, we're very excited to be part of this partnership. It's been great to actually sit down and continue this conversation that how we can build on that partnership, how we can double down on our customer experience and providing the best banking that we can across the, not only the Greater Philadelphia area, but across Maine of Florida and supporting all businesses, but specifically focusing on Black Business Month is a key partnership for us. So I want to thank everyone and look forward to the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Damian. And next, we will have Nikki Hawkins with 6ABC to talk to you about the video that we're premiere. Following Nikki's remarks, we will go into the video. And so I'm going to ask our esteemed panelists to join us up front. And so as Nikki is coming, I just want to say this is a partnership that began before I arrived. And this is something that our chairman had worked vigorously on making happen. This has been an amazing partnership with 6ABC. It goes beyond 6ABC saying, hey, we're going to sponsor you. When we had this idea to do this, we called Nikki, and Nikki said, we're going to make this happen for you. And she brought everyone together. And I see Shari in the audience, and she said she would host it, and everything came together. So it's because of this partnership, we're able to bring you good business, and we're able to highlight our members in a way that really drives impact for them. So with that, Nikki.
Listen, thank you so much, Regina Hairston, Stephen Bradley, the whole Chamber of Commerce. We're so thrilled to partner with you today on this and continuing new ideas. I'd like to say also good morning to our President and General Manager of 6ABC, Bernie Prezenica, our whole 6ABC team. And I'd love to say hello to all of our distinguished leaders here today, our panelists and everybody on Zoom. Good morning, good morning. So I'm Nikki Hawkins, the Vice President of Community Engagement and Strategic Partnerships at 6ABC, WPVI TV here in Philadelphia, and ABC-owned television stations with the Walt Disney Company. So Regina, yes, a few months ago with Felicia Harris and High Touch Enterprises, along with our 6ABC consultant, Gary Shepard with Third Floor Media, they said, we want to plan an event, a mayor's convening event with mayors of color to talk about pertinent issues. We said we're in. So with that being said, we thought it was so important to share best practices of how to empower Black and brown businesses and increase economic equality for all. And of course, due to COVID, right, we couldn't do an in-person event. They couldn't do an in-person event. So we said, we are happy to offer production resources to produce, to tape, to present and promote the National Convening of Mayors virtual event. And we wanted to help elevate this important conversation and present it on all of our platforms for a larger local and national audience to view. There's some great ideas shared. So after the screening today, you'll be able to see the event on 6abc.com and our 6ABC mobile apps. And we want you to download our free streaming apps wherever, if you have Roku or Fire Stick. This content is also available on demand. So please know that as Regina spoke about, 6ABC is going to stay committed to this effort. We are about to debut a new partnership with the African American Chamber of Commerce called Good Business. And we're going to continue to highlight the issues that affect minority-owned businesses in the region. And we'll go a step further. We'll continue to invest in the chamber and its actual members to help them thrive. So stay tuned for that. Why? Because serving our community is just plain good business. There we go. All right. So for today's program, I'd like to thank coordinating producer Marguerite Faison. Thank you so much for working on this. And of course, our fantastic 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. anchor, Shari Williams. Thank you. We asked you to moderate the town hall. You did an excellent job, and to host the program. So thank you so much for your input today. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to present a National Convening of Mayors presented by the African American Chamber of Commerce.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shari Williams with 6ABC in Philadelphia. Thank you so much for joining us for this first ever National Convening of Mayors event presented by the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. As we continue our commitment to uplift Black and brown communities, we are pleased to moderate this virtual conversation focused on the state of Black-owned businesses. Today's program will feature a town hall with African American mayors from across the nation, and later you'll hear from local thought leaders, politicians, government officials, plus the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce on how they're helping the small business economy thrive. This is an opportunity for leaders and communities of color to hear and vocalize issues concerning the Black business sector. Also an opportunity to share best practices amongst one another. We'll discuss how we can advance the minority business community here in Philadelphia and other cities across this country. This conversation is even more timely because August is National Black Business Month. At this point, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today's conversation, an esteemed group, if I must say myself. Mayor Dr. Hardy Davis is joining us. Junior here, Dr. Hardy Davis of Augusta, Georgia, a former Georgia state rep and also former state senator there. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Mayor Thaddeus Kirkland of Chester, Pennsylvania, a longtime Pennsylvania state representative himself, turned mayor in Chester in 2016, a product of Chester High, deeply rooted in the city of Chester. Also joining us today, Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina, elected in 2010, Columbia's first Black mayor. Columbia, of course, the largest city in South Carolina, also the capital there. Also with us today, Mayor Marty Small, Sr. of Atlantic City, New Jersey, a product of Atlantic City and was the youngest elected councilman in Atlantic City when he was elected at the age of 29 and surely knows the ropes there in the city of Atlantic City. Also here, Regina Hairston, President and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. The Chamber is a nonprofit, and today's special is the vision of Miss Regina Hairston, who curated and also organized the guests that we will hear from. Regina was appointed president of the Chamber in January of this year. Less than 30 days into her tenure, she hosted listening tours with the business community, with local leaders and the Chamber stakeholders to better understand how the African American Chamber can effectively support the growth and development of African American businesses. Well, today's convening is an extension of Regina's work. I must applaud this gathering that we are having, the conversation that's to come. At this point, Regina, I'll give you the floor to make some opening remarks.
Hello, and thank you, Shari. Again, my name is Regina A. Hairston, and I am proud to serve as President and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. I am elated to welcome you to the inaugural National Convening of Mayors. We hope to share best practices, vocalize concerns on behalf of the Black business communities in our cities, and to learn from one another. The forum uniquely promotes the adoption of any strategies discussed that might advance the success of the Black business community here in Philadelphia or any other city across the country. Given all that's transpired since March of 2020, we appreciate you taking the time to join us virtually and are eager to welcome you in person next year. On behalf of our mayors here today, our partner TD Bank, and the entire chamber, we are incredibly excited that you've joined us as we honor National Black Business Month, and hope you enjoyed the 2021 National Mayors Convening.
Regina, thank you so kindly for those opening remarks. And so let's get right into it here with question one here on the ballot for us today. There is a vast disparity in minimum wages, city regulations, and tax structures, state to state, as we know. For instance, the minimum wage in Washington, D.C. is double the minimum wage in Pennsylvania. Well, if you could attribute the economic vitality of Black businesses in your city with one factor in mind, I'd like to know what you think that is. And I'd like to start with that question with Mayor Dr. Hardy Davis of Augusta, Georgia.
Well, one of the challenges that I think, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the panel today. When you look at minimum wage, one of the things that we've done in Augusta is focus around that living wage. All communities and sectors are dealing with this challenge right now, but we talk about it from a living wage perspective. We know that there's a national discussion about $15 being the minimum wage. Here in our city, we propose legislation that will bring us to a place of making sure, first and foremost, with our city employees, of starting base salaries at $30,000+. I think when you create opportunity for individuals, it has to give them a chance to live what we call the American dream. And sometimes that minimum wage, where historically $7.25, will not in fact do that. And so if we provide folks with a livable wage across all sectors of the economy, it gives them a chance not only to be able to own a home, but be able to take care of their basic needs as well. And that's what we've been focused on. So there is a much broader discussion as it relates to the minimum wage, but I think we have to go beyond that, particularly when we are moving on the other side of this greatest global pandemic in our generation in short life.
Yeah, people really are being set back through the pandemic. Mayor Thaddeus Kirkland, I'd like to compare here because in Pennsylvania, the minimum wage, as we know, for the tri-state area is the lowest. Your thoughts on what you think is actually attributing to the vitality of Black businesses in your city?
First of all, I want to thank both of you for hosting this opportunity for all of us to express ourselves and to share with our constituency and to share with each other some ideas, practical ideas for helping our businesses, and particularly our Black businesses here across the Commonwealth and across the country. The minimum wage is definitely a significant issue concerning all of our residents and those persons who are trying to be employed or employable. Here in our community, we struggle with that minimum wage even more simply because of the pandemic that was stated by Mayor Davis. The pandemic has created an increase on cost of goods throughout our country, which means it puts a heavy burden on those persons who are working below the minimum wage, and particularly our Black businesses. So it behooves us here in Pennsylvania to pass legislation that increases that minimum wage. Right now, they're talking about $15, increasing it to $15. But what we're dealing with right now, dealing with the pandemic, we should be in a position to increase it even more in order for our folks to even catch up financially. Our businesses are struggling, but there is a light at the tunnel because of the creativity of our Black business persons here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and particularly here in the city of Chester.
Well, I'd like to ask Mayor Steve Benjamin, when we look at what's working and what's not working to propel Black businesses, what are you seeing in South Carolina, sir?
And thank you, Regina, and your team for this opportunity to share with my colleagues from across the country. We're seeing a lot of different things work, and obviously the process is always, you try to be innovative. You try to focus on things that have always worked. How do you create an environment that attracts private sector capital? You treat it well, it grows. You use the leverage of being public sector leaders to increase contracting and purchasing opportunities. The reality is that you should always seek contractors and folks who want to do business with your city as partners who must live within the values of your city. And if your city values inclusive strategies, then you ought to require that in your contracting. You have to do it in a way. Mayor Davis served in the Georgia legislature. A lot of folks often ask us about Mayor Maynard Jackson. Shari, I know you have some Georgia roots as well.
I do, yes.
How are you Maynard in a post-Maynard world when the world has completely shifted, the laws have shifted? It means that you have to be very thoughtful and very creative about ways you use public resources in order to try and create the environment so that everyone has a chance to participate. So just very quickly, I'm gonna try to keep my answers very tight because I know we have a limited amount of time. You have to use the levers of public policy, every single opportunity you can, to try and help build minority businesses, particularly Black-owned businesses, help build capacity, and by giving them these contracting opportunities, recognizing that I believe that a discussion around the minimum wage, regardless of how high it is, anywhere in the country, the fact is it's too low for a living wage. Particularly post-pandemic, as Mayor Kirkland said, we've watched some major shifts in the future of work. The number of people who live in the two bottom quintiles of American economic society cannot make it anymore. Their jobs are being phased out. So we have to be very thoughtful, very creative, very innovative about ways to pull as many people into the 21st century jobs where people can earn a living wage and also start, of course, in the constant vein of entrepreneurship.
It's absolutely, a topic to grapple with, right? The living wage, and where do we set that, and then how do we implement it? I like what you said there in regards to working with partners and people who have the same values as your city, for sure, Mayor Benjamin. And I'd like to then let Mayor Marty Small of Atlantic City weigh in and close us out on this question in regards to the vitality, what's working for Black businesses, and then the greatest challenge that we're seeing as well.
Yes, thank you, Regina and Shari, for this opportunity. And it's a great day here in the city of Atlantic City. I want to touch a little bit on the minimum wage part. Here in the city of Atlantic City, prior to 2 years ago, the minimum salary for workers was $22,000. As the council president, I made a move to bring that salary up to $25,500, and we still have a long way to go. When you look at the minimum wage, the state of New Jersey is phasing it in, and our employees aren't even at their level, and they have families, as we talked about in the opening, to continue to live the American dream, and we must do better by that. But the vitality of the Black businesses here in the great city of Atlantic City are far and few between. And my administration has started working with the public, educating people. We started the Mayor's Office Small Business Academy, where we just graduated 50 Atlantic City residents. Education is the key. People don't know how to start a business. People lack resources. People lack the knowledge of it. And what we did is we hired a group to come in, Laeta, which is from Camden. They ran our first cohort, and we're excited. We're connecting the people to funding. And, you know, COVID kind of set us back as well, because some people made the decision to not go to work and sit back and, you know, deal with the resources that COVID provided. And the workforce is still recovering.
Yes.
We're in a $1 billion industry here in Atlantic City. And like I said, we must do better for the people.
Well, we know, of course, the casino business, they're a big driver and a major employer for you there. Those inputs for sure of what's happening, it's very different across the board depending where you are. Well, as we start to discuss how to change the playing field, here are a few thoughts now from Mayor Muriel Bowser, Mayor of Washington, D.C., on what are the specific initiatives that she'd like to see enacted.
Hello, I'm Muriel Bowser, Mayor of Washington, D.C. As leaders, we all realize the unique opportunity ahead of us, the chance to build back better, the chance to build a more equitable America. Now is the time to move forward with big ideas that will support Black-owned businesses and Black workers. We should recognize the hardships caused by the pandemic and put in place policies that make it easier to do business, like reductions in businesses and licensing fees, support for organizations whose health insurance premiums are in arrears, and commercial ownership opportunities for small businesses. But we also need to look at the bigger picture, how we make housing more affordable and put home ownership in reach for more people, how we reduce gun violence, how we increase access to affordable childcare, how we make sure all neighborhoods have sustainable and reliable transportation options. When we do all this and more, then we support Black businesses, we support Black residents, and we make our prosperity more inclusive.
Yeah, it's so layered when we look for solutions, important ideas, and we thank Mayor Bowser for her input. As we move on to the next part of the conversation then, what are the specific initiatives that have been underway, shall we say, in the past 5 years, as we look to see how we can contribute to the rise and reinvestment, and sometimes where we are geographically matters, being in the north or being in the south. So with that in mind, you know, I know all of you have your years in public service here, but Mayor Thaddeus Kirkland, when we look at what has taken place in the past 5 years, anything that you think was a catalyst to get us to some improvements today, or have we failed in that regard?
I think we've made some inroads, Sherry, but I think that the failure comes in this area, and it comes in our educational area. We have, for example, we have a Boeing facility, Boeing aircraft facility here, right next door to my community. We have a movie studio production facility right here in the area. We have the casinos, and we have soccer stadiums. We have all these things that are surrounding us, but our curriculum is not based on the businesses that are currently right within the grasp of our young people. So when they graduate from schools and colleges, that they move on to other areas simply because the curriculum has not been prepared for them to take on the task of those career opportunities. I won't say just jobs, career opportunities that are right here in their own backyard. So I think we have fallen short when it comes to preparing us, or prepare especially our young African-American students and soon to be entrepreneurs, to take on the challenges, to take on those opportunities that present themselves on a daily basis right here at home, and provide them with financial stability so that they can live and learn and raise their families right here in our own communities.
I hear you once again latching on to education, and it's a point that Mayor Marty Small brought up when we talked about what's the vitality portion. Mayor Small, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, on what we've seen in these past 5 or so 10 years. Have we done the right thing, and where we are at this moment in time?
We have just started bringing up initiatives, and to answer your question flat out, we failed. But at the same time, the education piece, as the mayor from Chester said, and the knowledge that people have, my administration has started, as I said, educationally with the Small Business Academy to get people up and running, because we had a thriving African-American business community before the casinos. And you would think now with us having $3 billion plus industry of casinos, we have to put people in position, be it city government. We have an affirmative action officer to make sure that our contracts are making sure that African Americans get the opportunity. We're working with the building trades to make sure some of our young people who don't have a college degree, because college isn't for everyone, that can get a career with solid living wages and benefits. We met with the Casino Association of New Jersey, which is a group of all Atlantic City casinos. We talked about minority vending opportunities as well. And this fall, we're going to continue to educate our residents with an investment cohort, teaching them beginning investments, advanced investments, and then getting in a REIT, which is real estate. I mean, real estate hot here in the great city of Atlantic City, according to the article in the Wall Street Journal. So it's up to us as leaders to put everyone in place, and it's up to us as African Americans collectively, because a lot of times, people have that woe is me mentality. They blame it on everyone else besides, getting our stuff together and making sure that we have the proper credit, that we have the proper credentials, and take advantage of the opportunities when it comes. And now is the time with all the COVID money coming in through, and the priority is clearly small business, and we're going to support that here in the great city of Atlantic City.
Sounds like education and ownership, really the 2 points you're hitting on there. Mayor, thank you. Next, I'd like to discuss the impact the coronavirus has had on Black commerce. COVID-19 has exacerbated disparities in the workforce, housing conditions, food accessibility, and overall increased inequities for the quality of life that Black Americans face in this country. We know how difficult the last 15 months surely have been, and it's all a part, of course, of trying to attack some of these things along what's happening between our races, socioeconomic classes. And of course, we saw what happened in January with that insurrection at the Capitol, challenging the very fabric of our democracy. Here's Mayor Brandon Scott, who discusses how COVID has affected his city of Baltimore, Maryland, and what the city has done to help them recover.
Peace, everyone. This is Baltimore City Mayor Brandon Scott. We know that historically, our Black and minority-owned businesses and entrepreneurs in Baltimore have been disenfranchised and denied equitable support to initiate and sustain their operations. We've seen how the lack of access to capital is a huge impediment to growth for Black businesses. As a leader, I have set a goal of working to ensure Baltimore doesn't aspire to go back to normal, but becomes a better, more equitable city through our recovery efforts following the pandemic. My administration has taken major steps towards better supporting our Black businesses. While COVID has had a devastating impact on our business community, we have been able to be of more assistance than ever with federal dollars from the COVID Relief Fund and now the American Rescue Plan allocated to assist in recovery. To deal with that, we've committed extra resources to ensure our small businesses were aware of our PPP loans, grants, and pandemic relief funding. We know that to make long-lasting change, we must break down the long-standing inequities that have plagued our Black business community for generations. Through equitable investments, offering critical support, and nurturing inclusive economic growth, we will help Black businesses and ultimately generations of communities be more successful.
Thanks so much to Mayor Scott for his input. The pandemic has certainly hit Black and brown communities harder than others, and we know it will be the resources that are needed to reach recovery, which takes me to this question. And I want to start this one with Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina. And what would you say, sir, is the greatest threat to Black commerce that your city is currently facing?
Well, I think there are several, obviously systemic, as Mayor Scott just referenced as well. I'm a mayor, so I'm a glass half full kind of guy. While there are threats, I think we need to focus on the opportunities. How do we make more access to capital, more contract opportunities real? How do you recognize these systemic inequities, and how do we address them? In the wake of the COVID pandemic, which served as a great X-ray, a whole lot of broken bones in American society, we decided we were going to step up. We made millions of dollars of forgivable loans available to small businesses, the majority of them African-American owned businesses in this community, to help them make their way through it. It allowed us to look at a lot of programs we were already doing, and we accelerated them by immediately pumping cash and capital in them. CARES funding helped out, and now the American Rescue Plan funding is helping out. We did that by focusing on the Office of Business Opportunities, on putting out forgivable loans, low interest loans, a loan loss reserve fund to help people get into business and stay in businesses, working with our mentor protege programs. Sometimes our businesses just need a little bit of help. They need a mentor. We established our mentor protege program over the last several years, and it's going strong to this day. But it does require a great sense of intentionality. How are you going to make sure we want to get from 0% to 5%, 5% to 10%, 10% to 15%, and then sticking to your guns to make sure that this capital is going into the communities that you want to make sure it happens in. We can do it, but a lot of it is going to have to, just as my colleagues mentioned, education's a key, making sure that we have apprenticeships to help people understand that we're talking about 21st century jobs. It's amazing what's out there, and the educational institutions and pathways are there. We have to make sure that we're directing more and more of our people into those jobs, and also make sure that we're giving people second chances. We became a ban-the-box city. That gives a whole lot of folks who stepped out of the American economic Main Street before they finished puberty a chance to get back in, and that's also helped get hundreds of people working again in Columbia.
So many of these things interwoven. When we talk about where the chips fall, so many of them are connected. I want to give Mayor Davis a chance to weigh in on that question. The greatest threat to Black commerce in your city, sir?
I think similar cities, we share the same concerns that Mayor Benjamin and Mayor Scott have raised. One of the things that we've tried to be very aggressive about is understanding what the pandemic has done. We went from seeing fissures to great divisions, things that we already knew were inequitable, whether it's access to healthcare, access to capital and funding, but also from a public policy standpoint, making sure that in our procurement office, we provide opportunities for businesses, particularly minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses, an opportunity to participate in what really is almost $1 billion operation called the City of Augusta, Georgia. Like some of our other cities, and what Mayor Benjamin's indicated, we provided forgivable loans through our small business relief grant process. We're giving grants up to $75,000 and in some cases $15,000 to small businesses. And there were two key words that I focused on as I shared with my commission members, that we wanted to create opportunities for businesses to be resilient on the other side of the pandemic, but more importantly, sustainable for the long haul.
Good point.
So many businesses did not get the P3 loans, federal government, Small Business Administration. So we were that bridge between that and the lack of opportunities where that's concerned. In addition to that, we saw an opportunity for workforce development initiatives. When you think about historically, especially in southern cities, we've been bastions of manufacturing. In Augusta, we were 3 M's: medicine, manufacturing, and the military. But now, because of the advent of cybersecurity, we've quickly added a fourth leg to our stool in our economy, where it's cyber innovation and technology. So we've created pathways for students in grades 3 through 12 to get training in those spaces, while at the same time urging our citizens who needed to be upskilled or retrained to move into the technology sector. Because what COVID once again did, it accelerated the concerns around the future of work. We're living in a highly automated society, and this was an opportunity for folks to not only know that through our workforce development division here in the city of Augusta, they could go back and get those training opportunities so that they could move into those fields. And so those are things that we've done aggressively, and we continue to do that to make sure that minority, women-owned businesses and or individuals have an opportunity to compete in the economy of the 21st century that largely is technical in nature, where there's automation technology, and those things in terms of how we do business today and going forward.
Yeah, that's just simply where we are in this world and where we're going, the technology side of things. Mayor Hardy, thank you, sir. And so let's hear now from New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell. She acknowledges the enormous burden the pandemic has had on her city, but she's also acutely aware how crime and gun violence in particular has stifled Black business in the Crescent City.
One of the greatest threats to Black commerce that the city of New Orleans is currently facing is one, a rise in violent crime as a result of this pandemic. But it's not just here, it's happening across our entire country. National trends show increased crime as a result of economic insecurity, being disconnected from social services, and a halt in the criminal justice system. No jury trials for over 18 months that have been put on pause. This is a problem for many of our residents and our businesses. My administration created a plan to reduce violent crime that will make our residents and business owners feel safe, but also be safe. The city of New Orleans has created more than 19 programs and offices to help reduce crime through a holistic approach, including the Mayor's Office of Youth and Families, which I created through executive order, one of my first acts as mayor in 2018. And recently, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which launched in April of this year. Overall, more than $37 million has been invested in these programs and more to come. And we are already beginning to see the return on that investment. Crime overall has decreased here recently by 6%. Every little bit counts, and we believe that this number will continue to grow as we continue to implement our crime reduction strategies and invest in our people. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for bringing those to our attention, Mayor Cantrell. And I know many of you at home who are watching, you understand those threats, just like the leaders who are joining us today of their city understand the threats, the pandemic, the crime, even being in your role, people coming for you and targeting you and facing your own personal conflicts. So this is all about not just to raise awareness, but also raise the standard of best practices in our cities. Speaking of why we're here today, I wanted to again, thank the Chamber for this conversation. And in that vein, then let's talk about the role that Black chambers have on commerce and how they're playing out in your area. And I want to start this question with Mayor Marty Small, Sr. of Atlantic City. How have you worked with your chambers and bodies of government that are partners for you?
Yes, we have the Greater Atlantic City Chamber of Commerce. It's not an African-American organization. It is businesses within the Atlantic City community and vicinity. And their goal is to promote businesses. We work with CRDA, which is the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, which is responsible for 1.25% of the gross gaming revenue for casinos that reinvest back into Atlantic City. And during the pandemic, the amount of money that we received to promote Black businesses, tourism. As you know, we're a tourism town, and the pandemic crippled us, but we got through it, and Atlantic City is stronger than ever. The town is packed, and like I said, my title for the 2021 State of the City address was "Vengeance is Mine," because the great city of Atlantic City is coming back stronger than ever for what COVID took from us last year.
Well, let me bring in the leader of the chamber in our area helping put this conversation together, Regina Hairston. What can you say about the role the Black Chamber is playing in this area, and if you're in connection with other Black chambers across this country?
Sure. So we know here at the Chamber that Black businesses are the backbone of our community. So we work to make it easier for them to not only stay afloat, but to thrive and to grow. So we work with other chambers in the region. We work with the diverse chambers. We work with the U.S. chambers, and we work with regional chambers to make sure that we are providing the best opportunities for our members. We connect them to each other, we connect them to expertise, and we connect them to resources. We work with the City of Philadelphia by having direct funding support and by having a seat at the table to advocate for our members.
And that really is what it's about, being in the room, at the table, at the head of it, if possible, for sure. Regina, thank you. Our next question now addresses some important data. According to a recent study that is in regards to McKinsey, and in this article, it talked about how Black businesses tend to earn lower revenues in most of the industries and are overrepresented in low growth, low revenue industries such as food service and accommodation. So when we look at how do we open this thing up and get Black ownership in other areas, how can we talk about promoting equity? I want to take this question, if I can, to Mayor Benjamin.
Thank you so much for that question. And I'll probably pick up where Mayor Davis left off. He talked about the role that Augusta plays in technology transfer. The reality is that we need to start spending a great deal more time building businesses in high growth areas. The process of innovation, the way the world is changing so rapidly, the process of iteration in our community, the automotive sector, the aerospace sector, future fuels, nanoscience. These are all areas in which we have people who have incredible capacity. They have the ability. We've set up incubators and accelerators to help these businesses grow, and we've provided access to capital. We need to push more folks into as many of those spaces as possible. We need to push for an infrastructure bill. The reality is that in our community, we've invested about $750 million in water, sewer, stormwater infrastructure. Every $1 billion you spend creates 15,000 new jobs and the opportunity to create a whole bunch of new businesses. So yeah, to the core of your question, Shari, the reality is that we need to start investing in businesses that are in high growth areas that have a long tail into the 21st century. That's where our focus ought to be, and we ought to be nurturing businesses in that space.
Let's be frank about what we saw happening in the pandemic. As we were dealing with coronavirus, then we also had racial reckoning that we also faced across this country. And when that happened, we saw big name corporations dive into their pockets looking to see how they can fund, support, push resources to the Black community and to Black commerce. So I want to get you guys, everyone's thought in regards to this as we discuss that silver lining. There are people who traditionally haven't really had their eye on the Black community, who are now trying to weigh in on whatever level as it may be on that level of support. What can we say about what came out of that racial reckoning as we dealt with that, and keeping our foot to the gas on that, shall we say? And I want to ask Mayor Kirkland about that.
Well, Sherry, I think first of all, folks need to understand that our money matters as well. And we spend a lot of time and a lot of money spending in other communities, building up other communities financially, walking our dollars out of our communities as if our dollars aren't good enough for our community. We have to begin to raise the awareness of not only our local business persons and our constituency to spend dollars in our community, but we have to provide them with a product worth spending their money on. And we have to encourage other races, other people to come to our community to spend their dollars. You just talked about the gun violence and those things that are happening in our communities that have traditionally kept others out, away from our small businesses, our downtown businesses, our communities. Now we have to kind of turn that thing around. We have to recognize that when we harm each other, we harm ourselves, we harm our businesses, we chase those other entities away. So now we are in a position, due to this COVID and other situations that have happened here in our communities, we're now in a position to draw resources, to draw people, to draw businesses right back here in our own communities. But we have to do it, and we have to do it collectively, and we have to do it right. The second thing is we have to learn how to stop duplicating businesses here in our cities. It's one thing to have a daycare or 2 daycares or 3 daycares, but when you have multiple daycares and you're not realizing that you're not maximizing the business that can happen in your community. For example, if there's a daycare in your community and you realize that there is a young person who has a speech impediment, then there should be some African Americans working on How do I become a speech therapist to work within that daycare setting? Why? Because if that child goes to a school, once they go to first grade or second grade, then they're going to be labeled because of something wrong with their speech. I'm saying all that to say that if we learn how to stop duplicating services and broaden our horizon, we can do our cities a great service.
Yeah, the expansion of getting into these other areas, as we mentioned, getting out of what we would label the food accommodations and the lower growth in. There's one other big industry on the horizon. I do want to bring this up. We talk about the tech world. We know that's not going away, but Mayor Marty Small, New Jersey, the state there, making some true steps forward when it comes to legalizing marijuana and bringing business in that regard, marijuana dispensaries and growers. I wanted to just see if I could get your thoughts on that, because that is a billion-dollar business, as we know.
Yes, and as when people get their license for marijuana, they go through a state process. Once they're approved through the state, the process is for the city, A, do you want it? Which is yes, we opted in. B, how many dispensaries and retails do we have? And C, what area will it be in? Now, we have a medical marijuana facility on the boardwalk, but we won't allow recreational. And here in the great city of Atlantic City, we always have to offer a new industry, and the marijuana industry is going to be great here. Snoop Dogg and other entertainers reached out to us about doing business here in Atlantic City. And, we are embracing that with open arms. It's going to provide jobs. And also, if you see and look at the historical perspective of the marijuana legislation, be it Vegas, Colorado, and everywhere else, we have to make sure that not only are minorities at the table, but we are the table. And it's up to us as mayor to be quite frank, to say, in order to do business here in Atlantic City, you have to have African-American partners. We got the micro license, so there will be opportunities here. That's something that we control, and we're going to make sure that African-Americans and other minorities have a seat at the table in this billion-dollar industry. And, we look forward to having a successful market here in the great city of Atlantic City.
I think there will be, of course, a number of people who will be interested to know how they can benefit from that on a business side, because it is a big business. Education and access, I hear once again. Now let's get to our final question this evening here. Given all that we have discussed, how do you answer this? Where do we go from here? And are you feeling particularly insightful? Are you optimistic? I really want to hear from all 5 of our panelists, our 4 mayors, and of course, the president of the chamber. So let me please start with Mayor Thaddeus Kirkland of Chester. Sir, where do we go from here?
Well, we've already hit the bottom, so we go up.
I hear you.
We've already, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. And I say, you say that well. We've hit the bottom, so where else can we go? I understand your point.
Yeah, we've already hit the bottom, so it's time to go up. It's time to go up in the education of our children. It's time to go up in the building bigger, broader, and better of our businesses. It's time to go up in access to financial stability when it comes from our banks. When it comes to businesses, a business takes at least 5 years to get on financial solid ground. And so we need our banks to step up to the plate and provide us with the financial wherewithal, especially in our African-American communities, so that we can succeed and not fail. It's time for us to go up when it comes to gun violence in our community, not up so much as the violence, but up in making sure that our children understand that life is precious, that adults understand that life is precious, and that the breath of God is a given precious commodity. And we have to go up when it comes to recognizing that we're all in this together as a community, working together in a collective way to move forward and no longer backward when it comes to rebuilding and building our Black and Brown communities.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Hardy Davis, the mayor of the great city of Augusta, sir, where do we go from here?
Well, I think, thank you for this conversation. There's some 2.6 million Black-owned businesses in America, generated roughly about $138 billion of revenue each year. In order for us to go forward, we've got to create not only sustainable and supportive ecosystems for minority-owned businesses to participate in today's economy, but we've also got to address the challenges of structural systems that inhibit or mitigate opportunities for one advancing. So it's a multi-pronged approach. We've got to include workforce development, upskills, and retraining, particularly in those high-demand career initiatives where technology is important, especially with the challenges of automation, where the future of work is concerned. And so we've got to do that, workforce training, development, access to capital, procurement opportunities, both at the federal, state, and local levels, because I think that's where one of our great opportunities lie. And that's the role of public practitioners such as ourselves. And if we do that, we really create a supportive ecosystem where minority-owned businesses can participate in the economy of today while moving into the economy of the future. And those are the things that I would offer as we go from here.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina. Sir, are you optimistic? I already heard you express you are a half full type of person, so I'm going to go with I believe you're optimistic.
I am definitely optimistic. I wouldn't bet against the African seed and the American sun. Black business people have made things happen for literally for centuries here. I couldn't agree more with my colleagues at Mayor Davis. The focus on automation, on artificial intelligence, advanced machine learning, the manufacturing space is someplace where they'll be focusing on really how the future of the workforce is changing. And we need to make sure we're making investments there and use our positions in the public sector to try to help lever up wonderful partnerships, intersectoral, intergovernmental partnerships with the private sector. Look forward to working with the chamber in that vein. And on the way up, we all need to go take our butts to get vaccinated. That may indeed be the biggest threat to each and every one of us. We've got to beat COVID into the ground. Thank you.
We do have to just speak the truth on that. Thank you, sir. So great to see you and have you in this discussion. Mayor Marty Small of Atlantic City. Sir, where do we go from here?
Yes, I'm extremely optimistic about the great city of Atlantic City. And when you talk about the civil unrest of last year, I know a lot of cities around the country struggle with that for weeks and months. Here in Atlantic City, we had a bad few hours where our business district was hit with rioters and looters. We came out as a community, we came together. We were one of the cities that did Black Lives Matter Street, but I just didn't want to put Black Lives Matter in yellow paint and that be it. We named the month of September Black Lives Matter month starting this year. It's going to be a month of a month of education, a month of opportunity to continue to drive the African American agenda, and for all lives to matter, Black lives have to matter. So we wanted to do something of substance, and we're going to kick off that activity Labor Day weekend. I'm excited about all our partners. I've never been one to be shy to tell it like it is. I don't believe the city of Atlantic City values the Black dollar enough, but we all know with all of our stakeholders here in Atlantic City, now more than ever coming out of the pandemic, we have to continue to work together to make the great city of Atlantic City what we know it should be and what it will be under my administration.
Mayor Small, great to see you, and thank you for your added words today. And I now would like to hear from Ms. Regina Hairston, of course, President and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Thank you so much. We plan to continue to have these conversations throughout the year so we can understand how to promote our Black businesses here in the region and how we can bring other Black businesses to the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. We plan to widen the paths of entrepreneurship while building the infrastructure to increase accessibility and the ease of doing business by working with our partners such as 6ABC, such as our Coaching to Capital program we've stood up to make sure Black businesses have the banking relationships that they found themselves absent when they were unbanked during the PPP loan. We plan to have a peership to, actually we've launched a peership program where we partner with a corporation to provide our Black business with expertise. We plan to continue to broaden our reach, to bring in new members and connect them to the resources that they need to help them move past the COVID-19 and to increase the economy.
Regina, Thank you for that. And let me just acknowledge to all of you, we know what you do is not easy. So thank you for the leadership that you are representing in all of your prospective cities. Your input today surely makes a difference. Thank you, Mayor Hardy Davis Jr. of Augusta, Georgia. Thank you to Mayor Thaddeus Kirkland of Chester, Pennsylvania, Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina, and also Mayor Marty Small Jr., Sr. of Atlantic City, New Jersey, and Regina Hairston, President and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. We are so grateful for your time and your insight on this very important conversation. Now, you'll hear from various local politicians, government officials, and thought leaders offering their ideas and solutions to help local Black and brown businesses prosper. We start with the mayor of our great city of Philadelphia, Mayor Jim Kinney.
Hi, I'm Mayor Jim Kinney, Mayor of the City of Philadelphia. I'm extremely honored that our city is the host of such an important conversation during National Black Business Month, convening mayors from all over the country to discuss how we can collectively support African American businesses in our cities. The City of Philadelphia has worked side by side with our regional chamber, the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, and its president, Regina Hairston. Our Director of Commerce, Michael A. Rashid, whom you will hear from later in the segment, works to ensure our administration is attentive to the needs of African American businesses and works with the African American Chamber of Commerce to support those needs, the needs of our Black and brown businesses. We recognize that while we have made strides towards increasing access to capital and grants for providing fair opportunities for contracting to help businesses of color in the city of Philadelphia, we still have a long way to go to achieve equity for Black-owned business. We hope that this convention is just the beginning of a deeper dialogue on how we can better utilize city resources to stimulate growth for Black business here in Philadelphia. I'd like to thank Mayors Hardy Davis of Augusta, Georgia, LaToya Cantrell, New Orleans, Thaddeus Kirkland of Chester, PA, our neighbor, Steve Benjamin, Columbia, South Carolina, Muriel Bowser from Washington, D.C., Marty Small Sr. from Atlantic City, and Brandon Scott, Baltimore, Maryland, for lending your time and expertise in this conversation. And thank you again, Regina Hairston and the African American Chamber of Commerce for hosting the 2021 National Convening of Mayors. While we were unable to convene in person, we look forward to hopefully hosting each of you and others in August of 2022. Best wishes.
Hello, my name is Ron Busby, and I'm the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc., headquartered here in Washington, D.C., and thank you for having us. Great opportunity for us to discuss some of the challenges that Black business owners are facing, as well as some of the solutions that I think can be implemented both from a private sector as well as the public sector. First and foremost, what I think the private sector can do is to ensure that they're making opportunities available. We heard last year it's a $66 billion commitment from corporate America in reference to philanthropic donations and support for Black businesses and Black communities. We want to make sure that there's accountability as well as making sure that there's transparency so that we can track those dollars, make sure that those dollars are reaching the communities and the businesses that need it the most. In reference to the government, I think what many times happens is as a community, we let outside forces determine what our needs are. And so many times the challenges that we face are unique to Black business communities, but yet the solution is painted under the brush of minority participation and diversity and inclusion. But at this moment, in this time, these are Black issues. And so we are looking for intentionality. So most of the solutions that we want to see need to be intentional in reference to the communities that have been hit the hardest. We know that we lost 41%, nearly 450,000 Black-owned businesses last year between the months of February and April. We need intentional support for Black businesses, Black communities, and Black families. Together, both the private sector, the public sector, and advocate organizations like the U.S. Black Chamber can make sure that we have good policies, that we're making sure that we have intentional solutions, and most importantly, that there's accountability as well as traceability for the dollars as well as commitments that are being made. Thank you.
As chairman of the African American Chamber of Commerce and as a successful Black business owner, some of our major challenges that we continue to face are access to capital, which is needed to invest in staff and technology and branding and marketing. Furthermore, the lack of access to new clients and referrals. And most importantly, we have to continue to attract new, ambitious, and qualified staff with excellent communication skills. That's why it's important that we create pipelines and properly fund our institutions to retain qualified talent. And it's important that we continue to invest in institutions like the Chamber of Commerce so that we can expand our network for future Black businesses and help them have access to capital so that we can continue to be successful and have a legacy of Black wealth.
Hello, I'm Congressman Dwight Evans, and I represent the 3rd Congressional District. And I'm fortunate enough that you have invited me to speak on this very important theme, building back Black. You couldn't have a more important theme during this moment, the moment of bringing people together, showing people how we can make a difference. You are the backbone of the city of Philadelphia and this nation. Building back Black as the theme that you have is a significant thing. August is National Black Business Month, which makes right now the perfect time to examine the state of Black businesses and recommit ourselves to collective work to support the growth of these businesses post-COVID-19 epidemic. As the former vice chair of the House Small Business Committee, I've worked closely with the U.S. Department of Labor, the Small Business Administration, and numerous state and local organizations to provide Black businesses with the economic numbers they need. It's important to understand that we must meet the moment. This is not something that we can take for granted, but we can do it together. So with just having the Administrator of Small Business Administration and the Secretary of Labor come to the city of Philadelphia to see what your needs and challenges are. And with the help of the Biden administration, it's very important that you recognize that we hear you. So I want to honor you and congratulate you on this very important month, August, National Black Business Month.
Ujamaa, the Kwanzaa principle for cooperative economics, means to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. It is a commitment to the practice of shared wealth, economic self-reliance, building, strengthening, and controlling the economics of our community. I am State Representative Donna Bullock, and as the chair of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, I work with our members and the Black business community across the state to create opportunities in state government and to direct resources and other supports to Black-owned businesses and communities. Economic justice is critical to bridging the racial divide in our country. It is critical to job creation and wealth building in our community, which can in turn address other legislative priorities, such as funding our schools or addressing gun violence. Black Americans have been systematically barred from achieving economic equality. Our small businesses have been systematically excluded from government subsidies and investments. During the pandemic, studies projected that 80% of the Black-owned businesses wouldn't survive the economic crisis. My colleagues and I heard from the many small business owners in our communities, the restaurants, hair salons, construction contractors, daycare owners, retail shops, and more. They called our offices, sent letters, and invited us to their businesses. As a result, the Black Caucus advocated for a small business relief fund last year, $100 million that was targeted to historically disadvantaged businesses. We advocated for that grant to be administered by our local CDFIs, or Community Development Financial Institutions, and not the banks that historically locked out our communities from traditional financing. That is why we support the efforts of our chambers of commerce across the state, from Philadelphia, Central PA, and Pittsburgh, as well as the creation of a statewide association to advance a statewide legislative agenda for Black-owned businesses. This year, as we recover from a pandemic, an economic crisis, and calls for racial justice, as we recognize Juneteenth as a national holiday, and as we pull back the covers on our country's racist history, We must be intentional about investing in Black-owned businesses and communities. We must be intentional about creating opportunities for those businesses to do business with government agencies. And that intent must be informed by business owners like you. Be a part of your local chamber. Talk to your legislators and stay connected with state agencies that may have resources to support you and your business. As a legislator, I will continue to lift up your voices and concerns, to advocate for systemic investments and equitable programs, and to promote legislation and policy that builds and strengthens the economics of Black communities.
Hi, I'm Derek Green. I'm an at-large member of City Council here in Philadelphia. I also serve as Finance Committee Chair for City Council and serve in some other roles like President of Democratic Municipal Officials and on the board of the National League of Cities, as well as being on the board of the National Black Caucus of local elected officials. Well, one of the ways that will make it easier for African-American owned businesses to scale is giving them better opportunities to do business with the city of Philadelphia. Historically, cities like Philadelphia, and I also serve on the board of the National League of Cities, have often used lowest responsible bidder as a way of doing procurement. So legislation that I worked on in City Council called Best Value allows us to look at other factors other than the lowest responsible bid. This provides a greater opportunity for those businesses to do business with the City of Philadelphia. In addition to being Chair of Finance Committee, I serve as Chair of the Philadelphia Gas Commission. And the Gas Commission, through Philadelphia Gas Works, has been able to use Best Value in order to grow the number of businesses and procurement they do with African-American businesses in the city of Philadelphia. Well, the way we equip African-American owned businesses in order to scale, but also be able to hire in our communities, is really giving them the technical assistance that they need to grow. In addition to access to credit, which is very critical and important, a number of our businesses also need technical assistance to help them be able to grow from a 5-employee firm to a 100-employee firm. And that's something that we as a city need to provide more resources through our budget process to provide those organizations that provide technical assistance to those African-American businesses the resources they need to really help African-American businesses in our city to grow so they can hire many more people from our neighborhoods all around the city of Philadelphia and equip them to be a greater presence in our city and help our economy to grow. So when you think about the issue of hiring in the city of Philadelphia and how that will benefit not only the African-American businesses, but the African-American community, but the entire city as a whole. It's going to grow the base of successful businesses in our city. And in growing the base, you're also going to hire more people from numerous communities around the city of Philadelphia. We have, unfortunately, a 25% poverty rate, but when you help grow African-American businesses in our city, those businesses will be able to hire more from neighborhoods all around Philadelphia. And that will help to reduce our poverty rate and also provide more equity and more growth into our community and also for African-American businesses as a whole.
When I was elected to City Council in 2016, one of the most pressing needs in the 9th District and across the city was the need for preservation of our existing housing stock. Now, for starters, many of the homes around the city are very well built, but they are old, with many of them having been built 50, 60, or even 70 years ago. What we know as a result of multiple studies on Philadelphia's middle neighborhoods is that housing preservation is critical for overall neighborhood stabilization. So I spearheaded a program called Restore, Repair, Renew. It is laser focused on addressing this issue. It's a public-private partnership between the city, 2 lending institutions, and 2 nonprofits that are making low-cost loans available to low to moderate income Philadelphians so that they can make much-needed home repairs. Restore, Repair, Renew assists Philadelphians who are committed to building their own business in that it helps to alleviate some of the entrepreneur's concerns he or she may have about maintaining their home as they build their business. The end result is that as more entrepreneurial businesses sprout up along our commercial corridors in our middle neighborhoods, they not only help secure the life of the business owner, but they also spur job creation that assist other city residents looking to secure work and provide for their families. So for me, restore, repair, renew, it perfectly exemplifies the saying that a rising tide lifts all boats. Initiatives such as Shop Black Businesses Fridays are based on a marketing approach that encourages people to be intentional about doing business with Black-owned businesses. And while this is a fantastic way to encourage people to prioritize whom they do business with, broader and more foundational approaches must be implemented if we are going to affect the institutional changes that are necessary for a more equitable America. Now, as an example of this, last December, the City Council passed the Dr. Walter P. Lomax Jr. Transparency in Business Act. Now, it is aimed at bringing more transparency around the issues of diversity and inclusion in municipal contracts. The package of laws requires any firm bidding to do business with the city to disclose the demographics of the firm, such as the race, the ethnicity, and gender identity. All of this information will be publicly housed on the city's website. We simply cannot have a recovery that is business as usual and does not disrupt the status quo. And that's our job, to make sure that we don't continue with business as usual and Black businesses have access to equitable opportunity to build wealth, grow and thrive, and build generational wealth.
Hi, I'm State Representative Joanna Mcclinton, and I serve Southwest Philly, West Philly, Darby Borough, and Yaden and Delaware counties, and I am the leader for the Pennsylvania House Democratic Caucus. I'm so very excited to support the African American Chamber of Commerce, which does such a tremendous job in empowering local vendors, small business owners, and we as a caucus are working very hard to get the $7 billion investment that President Biden sent the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania into opportunities for small businesses. We want to make sure that both procurement opportunities are for diverse people and diverse businesses, and we want to make sure there's a small business grant program that will help you because you have had quite the challenges throughout this pandemic, and we in Harrisburg do not take that lightly. So we're working hard to support you, and we want to ensure that your voices are heard as well. So now is the time to request meetings, phone calls, Zoom calls. Come up to the Capitol if your time permits, but we can be accessible electronically as well. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your priorities, your needs. What types of resources can we utilize from this federal investment to ensure that you get back to business? Let us know. We're waiting to hear from you, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hi, I'm Damian G., Regional Vice President for the Greater Philadelphia region and Executive Lead for the Black Employee Network at TD Bank. We're proud to partner with the African American Chamber of Commerce in convening mayors and thought leaders across the country for this important conversation. At TD Bank, we understand the important role small businesses play in our local and national economies, and we're committed to helping them grow and overcome financial challenges through effective solutions and our convenient banking model. As the pandemic winds down and the economy picks up, we are both inspired and motivated by the optimism of our small business owners. We know that businesses need funding now more than ever, and TD is supporting our small business customers through the PPP, traditional lending services, and offering tailored financial solutions to meet their unique needs. However, the pandemic has truly highlighted the depth of disparities that exist in communities of color, especially as it relates to small businesses. We have seen this firsthand through our local sales teams on the ground across our footprint, including right here in Philadelphia, who ensure the unique challenges and opportunities of each market are understood and considered. And as a purpose-driven bank, we knew we wanted to do more. So we hosted community listening sessions with community partners across our footprint to help us learn more about the needs of local small business owners. We also work closely with local organizations like the African American Chamber of Commerce right here in Philadelphia and other community organizations to provide education around PPP and other important financial resources to help get capital in the hands of those who need it the most. In fact, That's why TD developed a $105 million equity fund in support of our minority-owned small businesses. The equity fund will enable specialized small business investment companies and community development financial institutions to provide small business loans and technical assistance, ensuring these businesses have the resources they need to scale and adapt long-term. Through this equity fund, we're infusing capital and helping stabilize small businesses. And we're proud to, in turn, contribute to job creation, economic development, and community revitalization. But just as importantly, we're hoping to break the cycle of disinvestment, which systematically has prevented our communities from thriving. For us, it's all about empowerment, opportunity, inclusivity. And we're empowering our customers by integrating financial education into everyday customer experiences and making access to tools and advice easier through online banking and other channels. Across the bank, we are aligning our business, philanthropy, and human capital towards addressing social inequalities and taking steps to open doors to a more inclusive and sustainable future for colleagues, customers, and communities. This includes our efforts through the TD Ready commitment, where we're helping our neighbors build financial confidence by working with and supporting Black-led, Black-focused initiatives that are driving positive change in our communities and in our society. Together, we can make a meaningful difference for our small business community, and I truly believe there is an even brighter future ahead.
Hi, my name is Mike Rashid, and I'm the Director of Commerce for the City of Philadelphia. You know, people ask me, what am I most proud of, having been Commerce Director for less than a year now? I think what I'm most proud of is that not just Commerce, but our whole budget, under the direction of our Mayor, Jim Kinney, our entire budget for FY22, in the midst of the pandemic, every penny was put in there with an equity lens. In other words, the police department, the health department, commerce department, everything was prioritized based on answering the question, how will this improve equity, diversity, and inclusion in the city of Philadelphia? People ask me, what are some of the major obstacles facing Black and brown business growth in our society, especially in Philadelphia? One of them is obviously capital. You have to have capital if you're going to go into business. You have to have capital if you're going to be able to withstand things like a pandemic or a recession and things like that. Another one that's not talked about so much is capacity, management capacity. It's extremely important. You have to have good books, you have to have a good management team, and you have to be constantly thinking about working that and making that better and improving that all the time. Another one that's not talked about very much, but it's crucial to business in America, and that's relationships. And so many times we don't have the relationships, the good old boy relationships in corporate suites, in the conference rooms. So when they decide on who they're going to contract with, the supplier diversity and things like that, we're not on the radar screen. And so those three things are the three things that we really focus on in the Commerce Department, is trying to figure out ways to provide capital in helping people with management expertise and technical assistance. And most importantly, again, I think, is relationships with corporate Philadelphia, bringing corporate Philadelphia to the table and helping them to learn people, to meet people, and to be able to therefore feel comfortable in contracting with Black and brown businesses.
Hi, I'm Mike Nutter, former mayor of the city of Philadelphia. When I think about some of the challenges and obstacles for Black businesses, women-owned businesses, disadvantaged business owners, and also think about some of the things that we tried to do and some of the things that we accomplished during my time as mayor from January of 2008 to January of 2016, I'm most proud of the fact that we had an incredible team that was focused and intentional about increasing opportunities for Black businesses, Latino businesses, other minority businesses, women, and disadvantaged business owners. And over that 8-year period, I think when I left, we had nearly 30% of the city's business going to those business owners. And that's because we were focused on it, but also the great work of a person like Angela Dow Burton, working in the Office of Economic Opportunity, keeping all of us on our toes about what we needed to do. When you look at outside the city, the work that Tiffany Numas did in the lead up to the Democratic National Convention, which happened right after I left office, but we put the bid together to help ensure that Philadelphia won that convention, a significant amount of business went to Black, Latino, minority-owned, female, and disadvantaged business owners. And so you have to be focused on these issues. At the same time, there are still many challenges. Access to capital, institutional barriers, institutional racism, systemic racism that still interferes with the ability of people to start their business, grow their business, and employ folks here in Philadelphia and in the Philadelphia region. So I would say, to those who are in business, especially larger businesses or white business people, give someone an opportunity. It's not about charity, it's about people wanting to do business. Think about when you started your business and the advantages and the opportunities that you had. People who are of color who start their own businesses, they want to participate in this great American experiment. They want to participate in the American dream. They want to take care of themselves and their families, contribute to the society, and continue to help make Philadelphia the great city that it is.
Wow, some great insight, ideas, and options that we hope will inspire change towards more inclusion and equity in our Black and brown business communities. And you'll be hearing more ideas about accessing resources to help our local businesses thrive as 6ABC partners with the African American Chamber of Commerce on a campaign called Good Business. Over the next year, we plan to highlight what's being done in our region in both the private sector and public sectors to invest in minority-owned businesses. Plus, we'll highlight successful businesses who will share their best practices and winning strategies. And 6ABC is doing this. Why? Because serving our community is always good business. We hope you enjoyed the 2021 African American Chamber of Commerce's National Convening of Mayors. On behalf of the entire AACC family, thank you for joining us as we look to reimagine, reset, and reinvest in a sustainable future for all. I'm Shari Williams for 6ABC.
I thoroughly hope that you enjoyed this special viewing of our inaugural Mayor's Convening. Please give a round of applause for 6ABC for the broadcast, as well as our elected officials who have joined us today. It has been an honor to host Black mayors from around the country. We've been able to discuss what's working and what's not in cities across this nation. And equity, and what is equally as important, is what we might need to focus on if we're going to succeed in building back better and building back Black. Each mayor, from Columbia, South Carolina to New Orleans, has its unique challenges. Still, the takeaways were clear. If we're pursuing equity, we have to create an ecosystem where conditions allow for Black-owned businesses to thrive and grow. Now, as we begin the process, plan, promote the programs in these great cities, we're able to think here in Philadelphia, where do we go from here? I am proud to introduce our panelists today. We have joining us Congressman Dwight Evans. Congressman Evans serves in the 3rd Congressional District, and he has been an advocate and champion for small businesses during his career here in Philadelphia, and as he represents us in the U.S. House. We have joining us also City Councilman Derek Green. We're proud you've chosen to come with us today to have this conversation as an at-large member of City Council. Councilmember Green chairs the Committee on Finance and Disabilities. Also graciously joining us is State Representative Donna Bullock. Representative Bullock represents the 195th Legislative District in North and West Philadelphia and is chairwoman of the PA Black Caucus. Next, we have Senator Vincent Hughes, who is a tireless advocate for small business, education, and everything Philadelphia. He represents the 7th Senatorial District and serves as our Democratic Appropriations Chair. Speaking of wealth of knowledge, I'm honored to introduce Commerce Director Michael Rashid. Director Rashid has dedicated his career to ensuring that people in need have access. We also have with us today Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, who is a tireless advocate for housing for the middle families in Philadelphia and making sure that there is equity. And last but certainly not least, I'm proud to introduce to you the 98th mayor of our great city of Philadelphia. After serving almost 15 years in Philadelphia City Council, Michael Nutter was elected mayor of his hometown in November of 2007 and took office in January 2008. He continues to be a tireless advocate for the city of Philadelphia. So did I miss anyone on the panel? And we have Damian with us, who is our sponsor today and who is working tirelessly to connect resources to our small businesses in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you for joining us. And so we had the opportunity to hear from all the panelists and videos. And Senator Hughes, I'm going to start with you and give you an opportunity for remarks.
So thank you very much, Regina, and thank you for the chamber. Thank you to the money man right here. We're going to get a little closer to him. All right. Good to see my mayor, Mayor Nutter. Good to see you, Michael. Pledge, always good. First order of business, get Congressman Evans out of here real quick. Send him to Washington, D.C. Fundamentally, and I say this with some humor, but I also say this in all seriousness, the greatest movement of capital in the history of this country, I started with since the New Deal, in the history, but it's beyond that now, in the history of this nation is occurring in Washington, D.C. right now. Yesterday morning, Derek, they passed $1.2 trillion, okay, for the American Jobs Plan, the infrastructure plan. And last night, and they did this, I'd gone to bed. I woke up the morning and saw my information, $3.5 trillion budget program. Why do I talk about that? Why is this important? Because everyone that you heard from, all the mayors, all the small businesses, all the mid-sized businesses, all talk about capital. All talk about the movement of money and the access to resources. Our communities have been starving for decades because of a lack of resources. This movement, starting with the American Rescue Plan and through the actions through the first 200 days, believe it or not, Sherelle, okay? 200 days of the Biden administration and what is prepared to occur over the next couple of months, it will be a huge infusion of capital in our communities. The question is, will we be structured to receive it and to spend it appropriately? And that is the huge thing. So I want Dwight Evans to say what he got to say, all right? But in all seriousness, we need him, banging heads in Washington like we know he has the skill to do, and he has demonstrated to get that money where it needs to be. Now, quite frankly, I'm into a little politics, Regina, but I'll keep it, I'm gonna keep it balanced, okay, all right? Quite frankly, there are folks who are opposed to that effort. We're experiencing that in Pennsylvania right now. And I think, Donna, you talked about it. And I think Leader Mcclinton talked about it a little bit. We sit right now in Pennsylvania with $7 billion. I didn't say 7 million. I said, now I'm gonna get on the front of my seat now. $7 billion of unspent American Rescue Plan dollars sitting in Harrisburg because the majorities in the State House and the State Senate, read that Republican, don't want to drive those dollars out into communities all across Pennsylvania. Why is that important? That's economic development dollars. That's money that we can recapitalize or drive into our small businesses, read that Black and brown small businesses, like we did, Madam Chair, all right, with the Small Business Grant Program, which we had a lens utilizing the historically disadvantaged business lens to make sure that at least $125 million went to historically disadvantaged businesses as grants, Councilwoman Parker, not loans, okay? So $7 billion is sitting in Harrisburg right now, not spent. And I want you to think about that, okay? That's economic development projects to revitalize neighborhoods. That's housing investment to help to create more housing opportunities or to stabilize housing in communities, because housing is key to wealth building in our communities. All right. That's all as access for our childcare industry. That's stabilizing our childcare industry. That's stabilizing families, but it is sitting. And there's states like this all across Pennsylvania going through the same thing. But we have success stories as well. And we need to talk about those success stories. And Councilwoman Parker reminded me, she elbowed me a few minutes ago to make sure we told the story. Utilizing the Small Business Grant Program, and this is an instruction here, we worked closely with our barber and salon industry. Now, like some of the other brothers on this panel, we haven't been to a barber shop in quite some time, all right? But we know how fundamental they are to our community. We know how fundamental they are to our community. Our stylists, our salons, our barbershops are the lifeblood. They employ people in our community. They employ returning citizens who got a trade and learned a skill while they were inside and now want to apply that skill outside. The success story is that we drove a significant amount of money to that industry through our Small Business Grant Program. But the beauty of this is that that industry has now organized itself, all right? And now they meet as a collective all across Pennsylvania and are in fact doing that and connecting with other communities all across the country. And that is instructional because they took their pain and turned it into power, all right? And they are small businesses. And many of them are not traditionally banked. Sorry, brother, okay, all right? They're not traditionally banked. So they work through the CDFIs. And the other story with this is that we utilize a Black entity, Lendistry, to be the facility to drive out the grants through this program. And Lendistry is now doing their business all across the country. So what am I saying? There's success stories in this space. There are wins in this space. And we have to talk about the wins because that allows us to believe again that we can continue to move forward. And in that context, we have to make sure that we understand that our businesses are at different levels, okay? And we got to provide supports at different levels. But I'm here to say, get Evans out of here, get him an Amtrak ticket, get him down to Washington, get that money, but prioritize, folks. Pay attention to what's happening down there. Make sure that the policies that are being written in Washington are relevant to what's happening in our own communities, all right? Follow those dollars. Make sure that they're working for us, all right? Because it is a huge movement of capital. And if we miss this boat, shame on all of us. Shame on all of us, because we missed an incredible opportunity that has been absent in our communities for decades.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. And what you heard him do is eloquently lay out the collective effort that we must have in federal, state, and local government. And we will hear from Congressman Evans. He will talk about how he's advocated for those dollars to come to Philadelphia. And State Representative Bullock will talk about how she's advocating to get her colleagues to see the need to invest in small businesses here in Philadelphia. But before we do that, Mayor Nutter will have to jump off in a few minutes. So we just want to give him an opportunity to respond.
Well, first, let me thank Regina Hairston and all of the great leadership at the African American Chamber of Commerce, all the panelists the mayors who participated earlier, many of whom I served with, overlapped my time, and to all my friends who were there live. Sorry I couldn't be with you directly. I knew this was going to be a challenge the moment it was announced that Senator Hughes was going to be the first speaker. But I will take the 45 seconds that I have to. I fully agree with everything the senator has said. And I do want to commend Congressman Evans, our great friend, for the work that he's doing, not only in Washington, but also, of course, here in Philadelphia and the Philadelphia region. The money is certainly important. And Senator Hughes, as usual, is right, and he's right on the money. But I think also, as our Commerce Director knows, and our business people know, when I look at article written by a brother out in West Philly, Jabari Jones, about a month ago, it's not only having money, and it's not only knowing what to do with it, but the fact of the matter is that our business people also need to be safe. They need to be safe and secure in their businesses. Our citizens need to be safe when they try to patronize those businesses, and that is a serious problem in not just Philadelphia, but all across the United States of America. And so we've got to come to grips with economic development, disinvestment, but also the issues of public safety in our community. Folks will not be able to patronize those businesses if they don't feel comfortable going out of their homes. Having money and the resources that have been given by the federal government, and I agree again with the senator about, I'm not exactly sure what some of the folks in Harrisburg or other parts of the state are waiting on, but the needs are great. Philadelphia, unfortunately, has the highest poverty rate of the 10 largest cities in the United States of America, and has been so for some time. We have folks who want to be in business, who can be in business, citizens who want to spend their dollars in communities all across the city and deserve the opportunity to do that. So again, full agreement with the senator. I appreciate what everybody on this panel is doing, but especially our great African-American chamber here in Philly and the Philly region. And I've benefited from their support during my time in office and commend you for putting on this particular conference and conversation. So thanks for the opportunity to listen and participate.
Thank you, Mayor Nutter, and thank you for your support. I will say, when we had this idea, we called Mayor Nutter and we called Councilmember Green, and they both opened up their Rolodex and start making calls for you. So thank you.
I want to compliment you. I thought about a couple of key things, Regina, as we were just talking, and particularly with the theme, Building Back Better Black. And I don't think you could have came up with a more appropriate theme. But the fact of the matter is, I'll connect that to Donna and to Cheryl Parker in the word intentional. Because having this discussion at this particular time, if you remember Sherry Williams, may I call you, she asked the question about how the African American Chamber can play a part in the development. Now, if you listen to that question, very appropriate, and the answer to it, the African American Chamber is contributing to the intentional aspect of this discussion by doing this round table. And it's important to remember that, because the historical aspect of the African American Chamber, and Stephen knows, going back to the days of Bruce Crawley, I'm very big on talking about the historical aspect, because it is important to understand how the foundation is laid to be where we are today. Because as you look at this panel, this did not exist, what you see when I started out. Now, since I'm a little bit longer than a few on this panel, this did not start. But understand how it started, and understand the intentionality of how it started and wound up to where we are today. And that is important to understand. And I will say to my good friend Vince, who keeps trying to get me on the Amtrak train, though I don't mind visiting Washington, I live in Philadelphia. This is where I live, okay? So I do my work there, but I come here. And I'm gonna make a direct connection to what he's expressing. Chinatown, nice town, Delaware, Reconnecting Communities. There's a direct result of a policy that was made 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago of disconnecting communities through transportation, through highways. If you look at Chinatown, you look at Nicetown, they are divided and there's a highway that runs right between them. And if you look how those communities are divided and the effect that has happened because of that transportation policy, which has been intentionally done. It was intentionally done. Here, Vince, show you example, intentional, had an opportunity for the position I sit in on small business and ways and means. We got past 1 billion. I learned that different, Vince, than from the state. 1 billion of something called Reconnecting Communities. It passed in that package that Vince talked about yesterday. Now, it's important to understand what that reconnecting communities mean in terms of community, how the divide is happening in our communities as a result of what is happening to our community. That is intentional, Vince. That policy, joined with my colleagues, Lisa Rochester from Delaware, and my colleagues from Baltimore. If you look at Baltimore, Wilmington, and it's no accident that Lisa Blunt Rochester, who is the congresswoman, the only African-American female congresswoman from Delaware, who happens to be the congresswoman for President Biden. So understand intentionality of what you are saying, Vince, you and Donna and Chuck, it's the intention. That's why I applaud the chamber for doing what you do at this moment. Now understand this moment. This didn't come about accidentally. Let's be blunt. It came about based on pandemic. It came about because social unrest. It came about because of Black Lives Matter. Those activities came about leads us to where we are today. That's where the intentionality comes by building wealth, building capital. All those mayors are giving you their various experiences in their locales, which we should share that knowledge and use that knowledge to understand how do we use those tools? How do we use those tools to do the intentionality? That is important because only through doing the intentionality are people understand at the end of the day, people must see results. I walked along 52nd Street 2 weeks ago with the Commerce Director, with the head of the Small Business Administration. I walked along 60th Street 2 weeks ago, 52nd Street, 60th Street. Those are very important arteries in terms of wealth building in communities. Until we translate that on 52nd Street and 60th Street, you can say the same thing on Girard Avenue, and people can begin to see the outcome. So the point that Vince said, the chairman of the Federal Reserve said this, not selected by President Biden, selected by the previous president. He said, we must build bigger and bolder. Chairman of Federal Reserve, bigger and bolder. 1.9 billion American Rescue Act. 1 billion in terms of the Transportation Act. 3.5 billion in terms of, or trillion in terms of the reconciliation. That's $4.5 trillion. 4.5 trillion. President Biden, Vice President Harris are in leadership. You heard that word leadership. So intentionality, and you heard leadership. That is essential. It is essential if the leadership is awoke to pay attention to use the element of public policy and private policy to make a contact, and what my good friend Senator Hughes said. So where we sit today, and it's very important, that we must utilize our opportunity in our position because the customers, the voters, the people are tired of waiting. And they're very frustrated. So when you talk about the numbers of poverty and poverty and violence that are occurring in the communities. Because it's like the tale of two cities, and it's the tale of two countries. Now, in certain part of this congressional district I represent, I share with you, it's like a different world. But when I walk in Southwest Philadelphia, it's almost like a community that people wonder what's going on. So we can have this conversation, but we must transform those communities that nobody thinks exist. We must transform. So the availability of capital that Senator Hughes talked about and that Mayor Nutter talked about, until we get it down, until we get it to a point that they understand that they can give value, this doesn't mean anything. We must, Southwest Philly, Southwest, West Philly, all throughout. We can't just give code. We must transform it. And I think the best answer is African American Chamber. I've been a strong advocate for this. Because until we build growth and wealth, and the point is my good friend Della Clark at 46 and Market, until we build wealth, those people get jobs, those people have opportunities, entrepreneurs, boot camp that Della Clark and Michael Rashid work together. I applaud that. I say this to you very sincerely. We must transform. We must transform. So I say, Vince, one thing I'm extremely optimistic. I'm extremely optimistic. I understand the challenges and I understand I'm crazy. You haven't been harassed, but I used to be up there. But in spite of it, and I've never in my career, and I've been doing this for 40 years, I've never seen a moment like we have now. To have all of these people sitting here, and they all didn't exist when I started out. And in the positions that they're in, understand that. In the position, the only question now is we must work with the chamber, and I applaud the chamber for doing what you're doing here today, having this conversation and dialogue, getting people to be woke and broadening the base. So we can do it, but we got to be disciplined. We got to be intentional. And we should not ever be apologizing about being Black. Unapologetic. We can't ever apologize about that. So if we start off with that premise and we understand, we'll make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Evans. And now we will hear from State Representative Bullock. As we look to transform communities and work collectively, what are some of the opportunities for you and for your colleagues to emphasize to other leaders that supporting Black-owned business should be a priority?
Thank you, Regina. So the pleasure of getting to go after the state senator, the former mayor, and the very illustrious congressman is that much has already been said. But I will echo all of their comments. And I think the congressman didn't realize he was hitting on a meme there that I see around us. That's how it started and how it's going. And so as we talk about how it started, Senator Hughes, and you talk about this is bigger than a big deal. We need to also talk about how wealth and businesses have grown in this country, particularly even here in this Commonwealth. We can start all the way at the beginning, I'm talking 1776, and how this country built wealth and businesses on stolen land and stolen labor. And then that's an infusion of wealth, an infusion of capital that happened very early on in our country's history, and moving into the New Deal, another infusion of capital that was systematically and through the institutions, the policies and legislation that was there locked out communities of color again from these opportunities for infusion of capital. Here we are again, and Senator, you are right. We have an opportunity here to make sure we do not miss the infusion of capital, that we are intentional, as the congressman said, to infuse that capital into communities of color. I have been stumbling today over all these B's because it has been such a tongue twister, but the congressman mentioned building bigger, building bolder, building better, building back Black, right? So I think I got all those B's in there, but we have to be very intentional about all of those B's as we look at this next infusion of major dollars and resources into our communities. Because so much has already been said about the policy and so much has been said about what we can do as legislators, I wanted to take my time to look at what models are actually on the ground. And I like Instagram. Your team takes a good job on your Instagram page, Senator. But there's an Instagram page that is kind of a little bit of entertainment for me, but I think it is a great model for what Black businesses are doing to support each other. There is a small business owner in North Philadelphia who's affectionately known as Auntie Salt. Auntie Salt runs a soul food restaurant called Country Cookin'. And she has one of the most entertaining Instagram pages ever. But Auntie Salt started her soul food takeout restaurant on North 22nd Street. She was known for all of her Instagram antics. She was known as the Camel Prom Mom and all these things, but she won the community over, and the community was invested in the growth of her business. Lines around the corner for her fried chicken. She eventually got the support of one of our biggest business owners, Jeff Brown from ShopRite, who said, "How can I help you grow your business?" And so he started to help her by carrying her salads in his grocery stores. Recently, he said, "You know what? I'm gonna do one better. Why don't you just move your entire business into my ShopRite?" And so now she is operating her full kitchen in a ShopRite. She has lines at the fresh grocer, at the grocery store, and she is doing exceptionally well. But the story doesn't end there for Saul. Saul then says, "How can I help other businesses?" And so her Instagram profile is used for other entrepreneurs to present to her their business ideas, what they're doing, and she promotes them on her platform. She has thousands of followers, 400,000. Thank you, Mr. Rashid. And usually for any of those lucky entrepreneurs who she promotes on her platform, they almost get instant returns by just her profiling them once on her Instagram page. This month, she decided to host a competition to support one business with all the resources she can possibly collect, whether it's the people who have helped her start, her business advisors who stepped up and said, "I'll provide an hour of consulting." Someone who does PR said, "I'll provide some other resources and support." So all of these other businesses started to rally around this competition and say, "We will provide some pro bono services or resources to whoever wins this competition." And I think she really thought it was going to be a great idea, and it was. But it got bigger than she could even imagine. If you have followed her Instagram page over the last 2-3 weeks, every single day, dozens of small business owners have walked into that grocery store, presented their business plan, and talked about their dreams and their hopes for their small business. And that in turn, just again, being on her social media page has allowed those businesses to have another infusion of new customers and people looking at their business, and then those businesses connecting with each other and supporting each other. And this is what we call cooperative economics. This is an example of what the Kwanzaa principle, Kwanzaa, is all about. We are seeing it in real time on social media, how these small businesses have gotten together without any government infusion, without any government interaction. This is not any policy. They decided they were going to support each other and uplift each of these businesses. And I'm watching, and it is amazing to watch every single day. Another, bright-eyed small business owner, young, old, the creatives come into that grocery store, present their dreams, and not only walk away with a word of encouragement from Auntie Salt, because she is so encouraging in her words, but also some support from other businesses who said, "I'm going to hire you," or someone who says, "I'm going to buy your goods or services." This is the example of how we can support an ecosystem of Black businesses throughout Philadelphia and throughout our country. And maybe as policymakers and lawmakers, figure out how do we support that through policy and resources to expand a Black business ecosystem that can really support Black businesses in the ways that they want to be supported. They are showing us right now the model. They are showing us right now the kind of resources, the technical support that they need just through this simple Instagram competition that a soul food cooking Auntie Saul decided to do because she wanted to give back what somebody put into her. And so I just wanted to share that because as we are looking at Black Business Month, I just thought that what she is doing right now is the best example of supporting Black businesses in our communities and really encouraging entrepreneurs to go for it, to just go for it. And so I look forward to seeing what comes of that. I hope that perhaps we connect that network of businesses with the chamber. And as members of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, we continue to work with our senators and our House members and leadership to not just increase grants and direct those grants, but to support the work of the African American Chamber here in Philadelphia, in Central PA, in Pittsburgh, and now the statewide Black-owned Business Association, because we know that those voices, your voices as the small businesses, are important, and that's where we should be getting all of our instruction for policy. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we continue, please clap for that. Yes, yes. And as we continue the conversation of creating an ecosystem for Black businesses, as Representative Bullock described here, I'm going to ask the Commerce Director, Michael Rashid, to expand on that and talk about what we can do at the city level to make sure that we have supports for our Black businesses. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Gee to follow up with how our lending institutions can assist in supporting these businesses as well.
Thanks, Regina. Good morning, everybody. I'll be very brief. First of all, I want to thank Tiffany Wilson, CEO of the Science Center here, for hosting us, talking about Black business. 40% of the business of the building that you're sitting in today was built by minority contractors. So yeah. So for every 10 lights you see, 4 lights were installed by Black contractors. For every 10 bricks in this building, 4 of those bricks were installed by Black concrete workers. So this is what we're talking about. And thank you so much, Tiffany. And she's doing more. She's doing more. I'm just one thing that she's doing. And then the only other thing I have to say, I just want to echo what everybody's saying, starting with our senator talking about organization. Our congressman talked about organization. Representative Bullock talked about coming together. Every city that I have been in, and I've been in a lot of cities, and even more since I've been a commerce director, every city where you have a strong African-American Chamber of Commerce, you have a strong African-American business sector. In every city where you have a weak African-American Chamber of Commerce, you have a weak African-American business sector. There's a direct connection. And if you understand what the chamber can do for you politically, what it can do with working with the majority Chamber of Commerce, the majority business community, the city, the elected officials, it's no magic wand. It's no secret. The chamber represents, the African-American chamber represents African-American businesses, just like Representative Bullock was talking about, together to help each other out and to advocate for each other. So I just want to thank you and salute you, Regina, and everybody and Steve, everybody who's on the chamber for what you do. And you know, the Mayor Kinney loves what you do. He told me when I first got the job, he says, listen, we're going to continue to support the chamber. They are extremely important, and we will continue to support the chamber. So I'll stop right there. I love this meeting. I love the fact that you're doing this, and we should continue to do this more and more and more. It's good for everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Gee.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think when you're thinking about building back Black, right, it starts with a foundation and plan. And, as we think about that from a banking institution, you really have to start with listening to your community partners like the African American Chamber and understanding where businesses are going in general and where the needs are and understanding resources. One of the biggest things we, had a better perspective on is understanding not just, the broad definition of access to capital, but what are the other opportunities? So, as we thought about that and put a plan together over the last year, connecting not only with our D&I team, but with the business and how that comes together, working with the chamber, we really wanted to focus on what resources are also needed to support access to capital. As we think about, SBA products, as we think about cash, day-to-day cash that a business has to manage and what resources a bank provides, as we look at technology, payment rails, all these things are involving and helping businesses grow. So as we just talk about not only access to capital, but then how do you manage that business? How do you create something sustainable? And for us, we really wanted to identify opportunities where we could be out into the marketplace, having more community partnerships where we have the chamber bringing in members and we can provide those resources. So a great example of that in celebration of Black Business Month and where we want to continue further is having an event, a webinar session, focusing on those aspects that we just talked about. We're having that on August 25th. Free event, and it's really focused on all those aspects I talked about, because it's not just around just traditional access to capital. There's multiple avenues that you can go, and working with the great partners like the African American Chamber that can bring those members together where we can provide resources and continue those conversations, it creates that opportunity for us to really make an impact. So for us, it's really around creating that sustainability, being a true trusted advisor, because at the end of the day, if that business can grow, it will create wealth. And we have other products and partners that can come in to help them grow, not only on the business side, but translate that into their personal growth. So for us, it's really looking at that cyclical nature of the business and how it goes back into their personal lives to help them continue to create wealth. So that's for us, that's the important piece, is really starting with a plan, foundation. And I'm really excited for the things that we're going to come out with over the next several months to really look at how we can be scalable across our footprint. And one of those areas is obviously key is going to be Philadelphia.
Thank you for that. And that is so key when we talk about removing the systematic barriers to lending. That is an important step for Black businesses to thrive. So now we will turn to Majority Leader Parker. You often exposed us to how we can strive for greatness rather than settle for standard of business as usual. So this question goes to you. Black entrepreneurs face systematic barriers like discriminatory lending, and this pandemic has made it more difficult for existing business owners to recoup their losses. What can we do to lift these existing barriers for Black-owned businesses? And then I'll ask Councilmember Green to follow up with a response.
So first, very special thank you to you, Regina, Steve, all members of the chamber, and Representative Bullock. I mean, you talked about going after the mayor, the congressman, the state senator. I've now got the big guy in the private sector, right? The lender, the money guy, right? And then I've got the commerce director here, right? So I mean, picture that, no pressure. Let me start with this. Bishop Desmond Tutu, many of us remember that name. He said, we spend a lifetime pulling people out of the river, but we never go upstream to figure out why they're falling in the first place. I use that because the private sector, and particularly small Black businesses, many of them have survived and thrived not because of government, in spite of. Sherelle, why is that important to acknowledge? I am an elected local legislative leader. The state senator and the state rep function at the state level. Congressman Evans is at the federal government level. If Black lives really matters to us and Black businesses really matter to us, you will see the fruits of our labor by what you are able to access. Not I know or we knows what's best for you's Black business people, and we come and tell you what's best for you, but it's us working in partnership with the African American Chamber to do this. Leverage the firms that are doing business with the city, particularly those banks where Philadelphia gives them the great honor and the privilege of serving as our city depositories. How are we measuring the amount of loans and or grants that they are making available for startup small businesses? I want to talk about the 3 C's. First C, obviously, is the capital. Councilman Derek Green, you talked about this public bank, something to explore, complex issue, but Worth will need an intergovernmental strategy in order to implement it and make it work. But the access to capital is important. But the second part that the Commerce Director talked about early on that we don't pay enough attention to is this. Congressman Evans, Biden, Harris, you're successful in getting this infrastructure package passed. Historic, you're right, bigger than the New Deal. We've never seen anything like it in the history of our nation. But when those dollars come to the state and the state senator says from the previous package, $7 billion is caught up in the logjam, how do we find a way to make that move? When those dollars come down to the city, have we even developed a capacity to make sure that the capital that you need, you're able to receive? So capital is the first one. The next is capacity. Michael Nutter mentioned it. If Black Lives Matter, Black businesses matter, Jabari wouldn't have written the op-ed. I can't earn the revenue that I have the capacity to earn because people are afraid to walk up and down the commercial corridor that I've made a sacrifice to invest in, to be there in the neighborhood, but I have to close early. And my counterpart that's in Center City gets the opportunity to stay open. I'm foregoing revenue because I'm not safe, because folks have not had the courage to stand up and say, Black Lives Matter. We need to end systemic racism. We need to call out and eliminate and root out any misuse and abuse of police authority when we empower them to protect and serve us. But guess what? I want the bike patrol in my neighborhood. I want to see a presence in my neighborhood of law enforcement that are working to protect my community. Listen, in partnership with the people who live there. Capital, and capacity. Sherelle, you know how many saws there are? I make sweet potato pie better than anybody else. I just don't have an accountant on retainer. I just don't have a lawyer on retainer. I just don't have anyone to help me put my books together. But my craft, I do it extremely well. Sherelle, how does government systemically make it a standard operating procedure so that anyone with that great idea, they don't have to be connected to anybody. They should have a place they can call. What do? We create Power Up Your Business in partnership with the Community College of Philadelphia. Any neighborhood small business, whether you are established or not, you can enter into this program for free. You can get mentorship. You can get training on how to put together your books. You can get training on how to navigate the very complex bureaucracy of government to ensure that you get the right licenses, that you're following the proper rules and regs so that you're operating within the boundaries that will allow you to survive and thrive. Why is that important? Power Up is free, but guess what Power Up has become? It's now the feeder for Goldman Sachs's 10,000 small business program. Why is that? That is further enhancing your technical capacity. Why is that important? Philadelphia historically, $155 million investment into anti-violence programs to reduce gun violence in the city of Philadelphia, $68 million in new money, $20 million being directed to grassroots community-based organizations. But what did we have to do? We had to make sure that we put in a layer that would allow those organizations who are doing the work on the ground have the capacity to comply with the rules and regs regarding how we use this money. We cannot forget about the importance of building organizational capacity. It is what separates the haves and the have-nots with who's able to hire the grant writer to get access to the funding so that you can be a part of the pilot? Who's able to respond to the RFP? If that in itself is a rhythm, there has been a systemic barrier because we haven't had the ability to compete without knowing how to comply. Wow. We haven't had the ability to compete because we haven't been able to comply. Final is continuity. Right now, it is true. We've never been where we are right now. This is a moment that has the opportunity to present, I would call it the kind of a change, a tangible change and hope that people have never seen before. And particularly from government, let me be clear, because right now, faith in government at every level is the lowest that we've ever seen it before. I mean, I think the public feels like James Baldwin. He says, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. They haven't seen it in their neighborhoods. They had, like, Sherelle, you all support small businesses, but where is the money to help me fix up my business? I needed to convert and adapt to outdoor dining. They did it downtown. I needed some help. Where were you when it came to helping me? People want to see it. They don't want this to be a fleeting moment. If it is a movement, it will be tangible in our neighborhoods. The business owners will be able to touch it and see it. The residents who live here, they will be able to walk along their business quarters, feel safe. Listen, see some trees and some greenery, see some nice facades, see a diversity of the type of businesses that are available in their communities, make bright lighting, pedestrian lighting. I know this is going to sound crazy, but imagine a commercial corridor being aesthetically appealing if it's not in Rittenhouse Square, Logan Square, and or Chestnut Hill, but it feels good when you walk down the street. Equity, access to opportunity, using these infrastructure dollars, everyone has to see it tangibly unfold and be able to take advantage of it in neighborhoods. If we don't make sure that that happens, then we will be doing business as usual. People need to see it. They won't believe it until they can see it themselves. Thank you.
Now, Regina, I thought you were my friend. First, you had me go after Bishop Evans, Senior Pastor Hughes, the chair of the trustee board and the deacon board, Reverend Bullock, and then Evangelist Parker. So I must be part of the new members class. But I'm just reflecting on all the commentary that we had, and definitely want to thank TD Bank, 6ABC for getting this information out to a broader audience, the leadership of the chamber with its chair, Stephen Scott Bradley, and you as president CEO of African American Chamber. A lot of things have been talked about today of how we build back Black, especially in this month being National Black Business Month. And when I reflect on all of the conversation that we've had, but also think about some really important numbers that are reflective of this conversation. Mayor Nutter talked about City of Philadelphia at 25.4% poverty rate. The population of African Americans in the City of Philadelphia, 43%. 6.4% of the businesses in the City of Philadelphia, African Americans own with employees. And I'm going to restate that. 6.4% of the businesses with employees are owned by African Americans, but there's a 43% African American population in the City of Philadelphia and 25.4% poverty rate. You look at the pandemic, from March of 2020 to July of 2020, there was a 68% reduction of active African American businesses in the City of Philadelphia. For white businesses, a 44% reduction of active businesses. And this is information you can get from the US Census or the Economy League of Greater Philadelphia. But then when you look at our homicide rate last year, we all know the numbers, close to 600. All of these things are interconnected. It's interconnected what's happening in the city of Philadelphia. And it's also an issue not just for the African-American community, but the entire city of Philadelphia and the region. As Philadelphia goes, the region goes. As the region goes, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania goes. So when you talk about Pennsylvania being the keystone state, this region is the key of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia drives the region. So we're talking about growing Black businesses, and it's great that we have this conversation, but there's other people that need to be in the room. That's why I'm glad TD Bank is here. That's why I'm glad 6ABC is presenting this information, because this is not an isolated issue. If we're going to grow the city of Philadelphia from an economic development perspective, everyone needs to be involved in this process, not just African-American businesses, Hispanic or Asian businesses, but all businesses. Because if we grow all businesses in the city of Philadelphia, that's going to grow in the city of Philadelphia for all companies, not just Black companies. And when I'll say Senior Pastor Hughes talked about infrastructure, and he was talking, it made me think of a company that was based in West Texas. It was called Brown and Root at the time. And it was a congressman at that time by the name of Lyndon Baines Johnson, who wanted to make sure that electric power came to his part of Texas, because at that time, West Texas was basically dirt poor. And he saw all the growth all around the country, but not in West Texas. So he helped that company get dollars and work to help electrify that part of Texas. That company is now Halliburton. When you think about Black entertainment television and you see BET, you think about Bob Johnson and how he's been able to grow that company. Bob Johnson started as a lobbyist in DC, telecommunications lobbyist, talked to John Malone, and he made an investment in his venture of Black entertainment television. And by making that investment, John Malone made hundreds of millions of dollars based on the investment. But what often does not happen is that we do not invest in African-American owned businesses. And as a result, we have the high poverty rate we have in the city of Philadelphia. We have the high homicides we have in the city of Philadelphia. We have all the ills and challenges that we have in our city because we are not investing in African-American owned businesses. And it's not a feel-good thing. It is an economic opportunity. When you look at investments from, and we talked earlier about Silicon Valley and other investments, we're making the same investments in the same type of businesses when there's a greater opportunities for return in investing in different type of businesses. But because of a whole host of issues, some that we've talked about today, those same businesses do not get those investments. When I think about David Sims, I see David has walked around here from Eatable Delights, who moved from Ridge Avenue to the 9th Council District. I'm sorry, Donna. I'm at large, so everyone's in my district. So, but when I think of David Sims, and I first met David when my wife and I had a ladies' shoe store on Germantown Avenue. I'm not sure that's the reason why I don't have the same level of hair that I used to when I used to be a banker. But David provided food and catering for our ladies' shoes business, Sold a Shoe Experience, when he first got started. Now David has grown astronomically. He's here in Philadelphia, he's in DC. Why is David not going to be the next Stephen Poses fraud commissary or Stephen Starr? Those are the type of investors we need to take for African-American businesses for them to grow. Because if he's able to grow, he's going to hire more people in communities around the city of Philadelphia and help us reduce our poverty rate. So my comments are really not so much for this audience, because this audience get it. It's for those who are on Market Street or on Broad Street or other parts of Center City, or even outside the city in Conshohocken and other areas, need to invest in African-American owned businesses. And the reason I gave the example of Brown and Root now being Halliburton goes back to what Senator Hughes said about the infrastructure opportunity. We're talking $1.2 trillion. Earlier this month, I talked to Congressman Evans about some of the things we're trying to do at PGW from an infrastructure perspective, how to prepare PGW for this opportunity. So one of the things we need to do with African American Chamber and others and the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce, how are we preparing businesses, especially African American businesses, to take advantage of this opportunity? Because too often we see the dollars come through and it's too late. So we need to prepare businesses now as these discussions are occurring, because that's what other institutions and other communities do. So that's what we need to do to help grow and build back Black, is starting the information now, not waiting to the bill gets passed, but as the bill's being discussed. And then also informing people about the David Sims and the other companies about how you can make an investment in that company now, and then you may be like a John Malone and have a great return sometime in the future. But too often, people are not willing to take the risk on the African-American owned businesses. And because people are not taking that risk, that's why we have the issues of 6.3% of businesses in the city of Philadelphia owned with employees owned by African-Americans, or 25.4% poverty rate, or 600 homicides in the city of Philadelphia, or a significant reduction of Black businesses due to a pandemic, because people are not taking that risk. And that's why we need to have these type of conversations about the opportunities you're missing out on by not making that investment in a David Sims or other businesses that can create a better opportunity than you would have been getting by doing the same business as usual. And that's why I think that's how we go from here and grow and do the things that we can to really grow the city of Philadelphia for all communities and all businesses in our city.
Thank you. I want to think.
If I may, and applause to the councilman for his comments. It's, you know, if there's a charge here, it really is. First of all, for you to understand as business folks, there's the level of interaction between the elected officials, federal, state, local, is essential, but I think it's probably greater than what I've seen it in a long time. Okay. When we created the small business grant program, and my council people, you know, we had lots of Zoom conversations about how to structure it and what's going on. And the importance of that is that after we created the state program, the city and other counties across the Commonwealth utilized our platform to drive some of their dollars to this because it was getting into these small and micro businesses, all right, that never had the opportunity to get this kind of investment. So you need to understand and appreciate that there is a lot of communication that is happening, and we're trying to build off of another B, okay, trying to build off of past failures and try to create more successes. If there is a charge, Regina, the charge is this conversation that we all see on MSNBC and CNN, and we'll pray for you if you're watching the Fox channel, but that's, you know, we'll pray for you on that one, all right? But this conversation that's happening, that's being talked about in Washington, D.C., this is not a conversation to ignore. This is not a conversation to say, well, that's just them folks down there. That's just them folks over there. Yesterday, 1.2, 3.5, $4.7 trillion moved. If you add the 1.9 trillion from the American Rescue Plan, you know, we talking about some real math here, all right? It's huge movements of dollars. There is a consciousness that has to be created as well. How many, you know, with all of these, we had this conversation, about $15 to $16 billion moved in Pennsylvania just in stimulus checks. Think about it, $16 billion just in stimulus checks. How many brothers and sisters were taking that money and spending it on Girard Avenue, all right? Or Shelton Avenue, okay? How many lines did we see? I'm gonna have to say it. I'm gonna have to say it because my wife would kill me if I didn't say it. How many times did we were taking a walk because, you know, you couldn't go to the gym in the first part of the pandemic. You couldn't because the gym was closed. We were taking a walk. We walked past Saks Fifth Avenue. The line was long with stimulus check money. Brothers and sisters. Now, when's the last time Saks Fifth Avenue made an investment in the African American Chamber of Commerce? So think about it. It's creating a consciousness at the same time. And Regina, we've had this conversation, creating a consciousness. Don't be afraid to invest in those people who have helped you out. All right? But the charge is right now for all of the Black mayors who are on, any other elected official who is on, any Chamber of Commerce is participating, scurry to Washington, to your congressperson, to your US senator, all right? Talk to them about how you want the legislation to be written to drive that money locally, to get it to where it needs to be gotten to, all right? Project specific. Project specific. There needs to be money that's put in place to make sure that Black folks can buy their own damn houses, since the banks, God, TD Bank's doing a good job, they ain't on the list, since the banks won't loan and provide mortgages in our community. Because that process moves wealth. In moving wealth, then we can then, Derek, go on Ridge Avenue, all right, and spend in them stores. Because right now the houses around 52nd Street, they got no capacity. They got no financial capacity. Those homeowners have no financial capacity to spend in those businesses. All right. So all I'm saying, and I'm sorry, Regina, that I took the mic, but it is important that we have a charge in this conversation. They have a walk away in this conversation. Empowerment zones or economic revitalization zones targeted specifically to address specific communities because they have been jammed for decades, and we have seen the lens of that disinvestment through the pandemic. That's the charge all of us need to be in the business of doing right now. Okay? If we're having a public policy conversation, it is where the capital is moving, and it's moving in Washington at significant levels. And I apologize for that, but we cannot miss this out. We've all been doing this for a long time. All been doing this for a long time, all right? We cannot miss this moment because it only comes around once in a lifetime.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Thank you for our entire panelists. Thank you for advocating and continuing to do this work. This is not the beginning of the conversation. It is not the end. It is a continued conversation. And as Senator Hughes has said, we have been charged to invest in our own businesses. And one thing we thought was important as a part of this initiative is that we do as we encourage you to do. We bought Black. So we were able to take the sponsorship from TD Bank, and we had our members provide retail pieces to go into a curated box that we actually paid for. So we didn't say donate it, we paid for it. And Senator Hughes, you charged me with this and I did it. And so for you today, along with everyone joining us, we have the official AACC Black Box. I am going to ask Tiffany Wilson to come up, CEO and President of the University Science Center, to give a few remarks. And then I'm going to ask Demetra Davenport from the AACC board to come up with closing remarks. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much for inviting me, and welcome to the University City Science Center. It's really been a pleasure to host you today for this important conversation. Here at the Science Center, our mission is to power the progress that advances healthcare innovation, uplifts communities, and improves lives. We do that through helping innovators and entrepreneurs commercialize their ideas. We convene people like we are today to inspire action around these important issues. We cultivate 21st century talent through workforce development and STEM programs. In our latest announcement, we provide access to capital to women and minority founders of health tech companies, as well as investing in solutions that address healthcare inequity. So we look forward to supporting your efforts and partnering to build new collaborations in building back Black. Thank you.
On behalf of the African American Chamber of Commerce, we would like to thank you all for joining us on today. We would especially like to thank our business executive lead sponsor, TD Bank, and our program partners, High Touch Enterprises, 6ABC, WRD, and Bellevue Strategies. Thank you, Regina, for your vision and your leadership. Today's events are just the beginning of the Chamber's Building Back Black programming. The second part of this initiative is the AAC Black-Owned Box, which you all are holding. For those who are in the room, you also will receive this box, and we are excited about what we've been able to do. The Black-Owned Box is filled with products from AAC Black-Owned businesses. Thank you to the support of TD Bank and the AACC, because the AACC was able to make direct investments into these businesses that provided samples in this box. So thank you. Through the Black-Owned Box campaign, the AACC Build Back Black campaign will support Black-owned retail businesses by creating opportunities through programming and social media promotions to increase the sales and visibility of Black-owned businesses. This box is just a preview of what the AACC will curate for purchasing during the holiday season. So you won't have to do a whole lot to get those gifts. For more information, refer to page 24 in your program book so you can see what businesses you are supporting through this box. For those joining online, the digital program book is available for this event on the webpage, and we will, following this event, we will also email the program book out to you all. The Chamber Board of Directors is extremely grateful for everyone's participation today. The mayors that joined us from across the country, and the esteemed panelists for your leadership and in helping the AACC and the Black business community craft an agenda to help businesses thrive. So on behalf of the board and the membership of the AACC, we do say thank you, and we thank you for hosting us. Be well.